Ryan, is there anything you wanted to ask?
Well, I was going to ask you
here.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what are your thoughts on some of the keys to the game? What are your thoughts on what Oregon needs to do to stay in it, or to win the thing, or what does Ohio State need to do to stay in it and win the thing?
Steve?
Well, we're so in tune with this running game conundrum that Ohio State's got to be able to run the ball to win the game, stop the run to win the game. And I think it is important. I think there were games this year where Ohio State got in trouble because the other team was able to run the ball and pick up first downs and convert third downs and these kind of things. And that's not something you want to see Oregon get in the pattern of doing, of playing keep away and extending drives and these kind of things, and Ohio State not being able to do it on its side of the ledger. So, I look at Penn State had almost 300 yards rushing against Oregon this last game. And again, is Ohio State able to even get 150? I mean, I think that's a kind of a question based on the changes with the offensive line, the injuries Ohio State's had, playing the younger guys. I think Luke Montgomery was a nice addition in the last game at guard as part of a rotation there with Sierreveld and Shabola, and we'll see how that plays out in this game if they're going to go with that again. It sounds like they will. As David Walker says, will the O-line hold up? And that's kind of a big question, and then you have the outside guys, Birch, and the other defensive end are going to create problems in pass protection. Ohio State did not allow Michigan or Tennessee, however, to sack the quarterback. So the pass protection's been really good with this makeshift offensive line, which has been, a godsend, I think, for them to be able to keep. He got injured on a scramble, basically. Right. Howard did, not sitting in the pocket. So to my way of thinking, the offensive line's got to play great for Ohio State, create those running lanes for Judkins and Henderson, and let them get outside and let them keep Oregon's defense honest. So you can't put, you have to put, extra guys in the box, and you don't have to, you won't be able to bracket or double team the receivers. So, Jeremiah Smith is a total mismatch. And, if they come up a situation where he's one-on-one, Howard's going to take full advantage of that. So that's going to be interesting to watch how that unfolds. But it's all a chess match. They know each other so well. There's 13 games on tape for both teams. They played each other. So there is so much, almost too much data, I think, for the coaches to sift through at this point and spook themselves into trying to prepare for every eventuality. You can't do that. You have to come up with what you think is the best and let it rip. That's all you can do.
Paralysis by analysis.
Exactly. Before you get started there, number 77 on the line, Shabola.
Yeah.
What's the story there? Because it looked like was he hurt in the last game at the end of the thing, or did he just get taken out? I know he was kind of ridiculed for some of his play earlier in the Michigan game as well.
Yeah, so they've been doing a rotation at right guard and left guard, frankly, with Shabola and Austin Sierreveld, who will play left guard and right guard. It's just they've got a three-man rotation going. Shabola has been pretty shaky for most of the season. Even to start the season, Sierreveld was playing some mixing in at right guard with Shabola taking a seat at times. So not an injury thing. It's just a lack of consistency thing more than anything. But also the coaches will tell you, well, it's a meritocracy. And they even said that today, as guys have earned playing time, we're going to find them playing time. And now it has reached the offensive line where you almost never have a rotation anywhere because you want to have that cohesion. But Luke Montgomery has mixed in. He's now been mixing in, rotating in at left guard with Sierreveld. Then Sierreveld will go over to right guard when Montgomery's in. So they've just got this little musical chairs thing going on. And it worked. It actually worked against Tennessee. And they're going to continue to do that again. But I'm interested to see how then Tennessee attacks each different guy who has like a different weakness or a different strength. And if Ohio State plays to those strengths, then that kind of tells Oregon what they're going to do. So like if Luke Montgomery's in and he's really good at pulling, then and that's what he did the bulk of the previous game. Oregon's like, well, we kind of know what's coming. So you can't get too predictable with that either. Generally, a rotation of any kind on the offensive line is bad news. And
this one,
Yeah, there wouldn't be a rotation if Shabola was all conference. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it's a little bit unorthodox, but for them, I think that you get the best play out of all three guys. You know, if there's 70 plays in a game, you limit each of them to 45 plays. I think that you're going to get the best, effort out of all of them for those 45 plays. And I think that makes a little bit of a difference. Shabola is 6'6", 328 pounds, which ordinarily you'd say, maybe he's a tackle, but he doesn't seem to have the feet or the athleticism to be able to stop a speed rusher coming off the edge. They have run behind him several times with good success. It's just consistency with him. It's being able to bring it at all times. And, again, he's a younger guy, I guess a third-year guy, but really hadn't played a whole lot prior to this season. And so, he's a guy that's picking it up as he goes. And I think that is has been, a bit of a baptism for him. And, for them to piece it together without, the guy who was an All-American, Seth McLaughlin at center, and Josh Simmons, who was playing an outstanding role at left tackle, who went down with the injury in the Oregon game. Those two guys, if you put them on this line, I don't want to say Ohio State would be unbeatable, but they'd be pretty close to unbeatable. So, you think about it, I guess from the Ohio State standpoint is cross your fingers and hope that offensive line holds up through an entire 4-quarter game. And, we're going to get down to the fourth quarter of this game and somebody is going to make a play that really changes this thing. And it should just be one heck of a 4-hour romp. I think we're in for something really, really a lot of fun on Wednesday afternoon and evening.
I agree. And so on that offensive line, was that the case before the injuries, or is it in a result of the injuries? Because when they moved Donovan Jackson out to tackle, is that correct? Is that when that started?
Yeah. Well, they've gone through like 5 different lineups in 13 games. So they put a guy in, Zen Mahalski, for one game, and he got hurt. So then they had to change it again. And that's when they put Donovan Jackson from guard, who was probably all Big Ten guard, out to tackle. And he's done a good job. I think Jackson's an NFL player. I think Simmons and McLaughlin are NFL players. So, you had 3 and now you only have 1. So that's kind of tells you where you're at.
Remember, early in the season, before the season started, I think it was before spring, one of the first times we talked to Chip, he talked about Bill O'Brien telling him that there are 3 guys that would start in the NFL right now on the offensive line. And I remember tweeting that and reporting it, and people were like, just laughing and scoffing at the idea. And he was clearly talking about Simmons, who was being talked about as a first or second rounder. Seth McLaughlin goes and wins the Remington. And then Donovan Jackson may actually be a better left tackle than left guard the way he's played this year. So I think they've done well. But, there have been so many iterations of this offensive line that it's a tough task to go to your 6th and 7th guy and have them be able to start. And having Carson Hinsman be one of those guys who was the starting center last year, that's a luxury that almost nobody has. And so then he played guard, and then he's been to center. So they've got veterans, and even the young guys that have been playing have been able to start some games, because Donovan Jackson missed the first 2 games. So Austin Siereveld started for him as a redshirt freshman because he had done enough in camp. And normally Ohio State wants nothing to do with redshirt freshmen starting on the offensive line. So that's what Hinsman was a year ago, and things didn't always go great. But I'm going to say this, I know Ohio State fans are going to be mad. You got to give Justin Fry his credit this year for being able to do what he's done on the offensive line.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, the offensive line's done a pretty good job being piecemealed together, like you said, man. It's a lot of iterations of the same thing. What are your thoughts on this game, Mark?
Well, I was just going to ask these two if they thought that, considering what happened to Denzel Burke in particular, whether Jim Knowles was going to switch things up, whether we were going to see just a completely different approach. There's always the guessing game in terms of how much pressure do you put on with 4 versus how much do you get exotic with blitzes.
Right.
Of course, Jordan James has to be contained in all of this as well.
I do think they'll be more aggressive because it's been effective for them, and that's what Ryan Day has mandated. Now, I don't know that you need to be – here's the thing. should you be more aggressive against Dylan Gabriel? They want to change the picture. They want to get him uncomfortable. It's hard to get him uncomfortable, but then once you collapse the pocket and chase him out, are you creating more issues by then freeing him and getting him out of the pocket? Because at times you are. So if you're going to blitz and you're going to change some things up, you better get him, because he's going to keep looking around. And then maybe you can take advantage of some of the throws that he tries to squeeze into windows, because he does not have the strongest arm. He's accurate, but he can maybe test the defense a little bit that maybe he shouldn't. And we've seen the red zone interceptions this year as kind of proof of that. But if they have to create some pressure through some blitzing, and if they don't and they're able to get it just through the defensive line, then Ohio State wins. But I don't think that that's going to be the case, because this is a pretty good offensive line, two good tackles that can be outstanding at times.
Yeah, Oregon's offensive line has done a pretty good job this year against some pretty good talent they've faced up against. I mean, there's some pretty good dudes that they've gone up against, and they've had a very consistent line since basically the third week. They had some injuries right out of the gate that they had to deal with, but yeah, no, this is an offensive line that's pretty tried and true at this point, and they're healthy. Defensive line looks good for Oregon as well. I think the trenches is a good matchup. I think Oregon and Ohio State are two very, very good teams in the trenches. And I don't know if that's always necessarily how the rest of the country sees it, but I think this year they're both very physical, very fast, very strong teams.
The defensive line that I saw against Washington was the best defensive line I saw all year, but it wasn't the same defensive line I saw against Penn State. So I know they're good because I saw them against Ohio State as well, and Jordan Birch wasn't there, but they dominated. They sacked Washington 10 times. Now they're facing a true freshman quarterback.
Right. And I was about to say the quarterback has a lot to do with that, because like I said, with Bo was very apt at trying to get out of pressure, and their quarterback was not at all. I would also say go put on that film of the Penn State-Washington game. Penn State completely dominated Washington as well. So something to be said about the Penn State game. And the Penn State game Penn State even kind of lulled you guys into a little bit of a trap in that game. That was a tough game for you Buckeyes to finish off as well. They're a good team. I think that's something to be said. And it felt like they played very fast on that turf. That in that Lucas Oil Stadium, it felt like Penn State was a very, very fast team. And I don't know if that was expected either.
Hey, how about this? Penn State got a better draw than Ohio State and Ohio State and Oregon both.
I know. I like that.
What a pisser.
It's a weird deal. But you know what? I tend to think I'd rather be at these games. I would hate to go to, no offense to Boise State or Arizona State, but I don't know. I love the fact that Oregon and Ohio State are playing this game. It's the one that matters.
The classic game.
It's the one that matters, man. It's the one that matters, and it's the classic. It's at the Rose Bowl. Everything's right about this game. So there might be some other stuff down the road that might not be as great with some of the filtering and this stuff out, next year or whatever else to figure the thing out. But this is what we have this year. This is what we all agreed upon this year. Let's go play this thing out, man.
I bet the coaches are happier to have this as game 14 rather than game 16 or 17, because they're as healthy as they're going to be right now. And you don't want to play two more games.
Yeah, both these teams look good. I mean, Ohio State looked very Ohio State looked tired in the Michigan game. Oregon looked tired in the Penn State game. And it felt like at the end of the year, it was a long gauntlet of a season. You have to get through those last couple weeks. They always come up and bite you. Ohio State looked so fresh against Tennessee. Boy, they looked so good. And hopefully we'll see the same thing in the Rose Bowl. We'll see two teams that are both refreshed and ready to play.
I think for Ohio State, a big key, and you touched on this, was getting some sort of pressure on Gabriel. Even if you don't sack him, you make his throws a little more difficult with a hand in his face. And Ohio State just didn't really succeed in doing that the first time around. He was kept pretty clean. Ohio State's coming off a game against Tennessee where Tui Maloau, 2 sacks, Sawyer 1.5 sacks. They played, again, one of their best games, as a tandem this past game. And now they're gearing up for, the Vision Quest. This is it. I mean, you win this game and you get to the Final Four, I think that you have redeemed yourself in good stead for what happened against Michigan, regardless of what may happen the rest of the way. And even having said that, I think you've set yourself up pretty well, because you're going to play Texas or Arizona State in the next game. The winner of this game is set up pretty good, in my feeling, to get to the championship game. I actually give Arizona State a chance to pull off the upset, because they've played some really good football here down the stretch. Boise State, their only hope, to my feeling, is Genty has got to have like 200 yards and 3 long touchdown runs. I think something just super extraordinary has to happen for Boise State to win that game. I don't think it's going to. I don't think Penn State runs away with it necessarily, but I just don't know how. I mean, Penn State, to me, by the way that they played Oregon the last 3 quarters, that was about as good a 3 quarters of football that Penn State's played in 10 years. I agree. I'm not joking. I mean, that was different from James Franklin than anything we've seen. The problem was they dug themselves such a big hole, early on that they were digging out. I mean, you give up 31 points in the first half. I mean, it's hard to win a game doing that. So, I like Penn State. And the other one, I assume Georgia's going to win, but damn, Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame have been on a rampage. Now, a lot of it's who they've played. They haven't played top teams in this 10-game winning streak or whatever it is. But, I just think Georgia's probably the better team, and, we'll win that game. But, we're in for, Tuesday and Wednesday. We are in for it. I think we are in for just a great time.